The story today, no doubt, begins with the work of Dylan Cease, who continues to be everything the Padres thought they were getting when they traded for him right before the season began, right before the trip to Korea. Here today, 7 innings, no runs given up, 1 hit, 2 walks. He struck out 12, a season high, on a grand total of 113 pitches. He was simply dominant in this game. And by the way, the only hit he gave up, an infield single to Yan Gomes. That was it. So he did not even give up a base hit that left the infield. He was that good. He kept the Cubs off balance all afternoon long. And the thing that you just marvel at with Dylan Cease is the way he gets it done. Here today, 89% of his pitches, he just went with 2. 4-seam fastball, 50%, slider, 39%, mixed in the sweeper, mixed in a couple of knuckle curveballs, a changeup, a cutter, but 50% 4-seamer, 39% slider. The way he's able to live up in the zone at times with that slider, he dominates. When he's got it going, he is as good as anybody, as any starting pitcher in baseball. I mean, we've seen this guy have a Cy Young caliber season before, and the early part of his Padres career has been really, really impressive. I mean, you can't say enough about what he's done so far, and to do it in Chicago, his first start back in that city since the trade from the White Sox in March, and against a team in the Cubs that originally drafted him, then traded him to the White Sox. Not the first time he's faced the Cubs or been at Wrigley Field, but kind of a cool storyline there. Dylan Cease going back there today, and he was simply dominant. The bullpen helped him out. Wandy Peralta, nice and easy 1-2-3 inning, and then Robert Suarez. What more can you say about him? Now 12 for 12 in save opportunities, and once again, not just the effectiveness on the mound, but the efficiency. 11 pitches to get the 3 outs in the 9th inning. So the pitching today for the Padres, a one-hitter between Cease, Peralta, and Suarez. They were tremendous here today. It's exactly what the Padres needed from Cease today, from the bullpen today. The other part of this game that you like, the Padres offense didn't explode offensively, 3 runs on 8 hits, but they were going up against the guy in Hayden Wesneski, who had been really, really good to this point in the season. Wesneski, like we said during the pregame, like Jesse and Tony talked about, a sub-1 ERA entering this start, really had been a little bit of a surprise with how good he's been. And Wesneski was pretty good today. 6 innings, 3 runs given up. It was a quality start. But what the Padres did, they took advantage of the opportunities they had on a couple of occasions. The first time being in the first inning, Manny Machado, a 2-out single to make it a 1-0 game. Then the Padres had more 2-out magic in the 5th inning, a couple of 2-out RBI hits from Fernando Tatis Jr., an RBI double from Jake Cronenworth right after that. That made it 3-0, and we didn't know it at the time for sure, but that ended up being plenty in this game as the Padres went 3 for 7 with runners in scoring position, but the 3 hits they did have with RISP ended up being plenty. And the 2-out magic, all those RBIs coming with 2 outs, you had to like that here today. When the Padres had some opportunities against Wesneski, they took advantage, and hey, you know, there were other opportunities they could have taken advantage of as well. But you know what? Some days when your pitching is as good as it was here today, you take 3 2-out RBIs and you run with it, you get out of town. And that's what the Padres can do today. Luis Arraez, 2 hits in this game. He was on 3 times. He got hit by a pitch in the first inning. I thought a really underrated part of this game, and the first inning was a good example. There was another example in the 4th where the Padres didn't score, but I do want to point it out. In the very top of the first inning, Orise gets hit by a pitch. There's 1 out. He's still on first base with Jake Cronenworth at the plate. Cronenworth ends up grounding a ball to the right side, but Arraez was put in motion. He was off and running on the pitch. Stays out of a potential double play. Whether the Cubs could have turned it or not, who knows, but stays out for sure of that double play, gets to second base, and that gave Manny the opportunity to come up with the 2-out RBI base hit, gave the Padres a 1-0 lead just like that. And I bring it up because it's something we talked about on Monday in that 6-run inning that propelled the Padres to a win. We loved, if you heard the post-game show on Monday, we loved the way they were aggressive, the double steal, a couple of hit and runs, trying to push the envelope. I like that. I like that part of what Mike Schultz brought to this team, at least in the last handful of days here. Little bit of aggressiveness on the bases, staying out of a double play. There was another good example of it in the fourth inning where Cronenworth was put in motion on a ground ball that ends up getting hit by Profar, and they stayed out of a double play. Cronenworth never came in to score, but it was another example of that. So I like that here today as well, and the Padres came up with enough offense to win this game. But again, the big story in this one, Dylan Cease, 7 scoreless innings. He struck out 12, and he continues to be mighty, mighty impressive in the very early part of his Padre career. I mean, you know, when the trade was made, obviously the Padres gave up good talent to go get him. It has worked out really, really well so far. There's no doubt about it. He has been exactly the guy that the Padres thought they were getting. The Padres thought was in there. Remember, Cease last season, it wasn't as good for him as the year before in 2022 when he was finishing second in Cy Young voting. But he has been an ace. He has been everything you could have hoped for so far, and he lowered his ERA in the early part of his Padre career to 2.19 with the performance here today. So great stuff from him. He continues to be ace-like. Bullpen gets it done, and the Padres get out of town, get out of Chicago with a series win, winning 2 out of 3, a 4-2 road trip. You'll take that. Hey, if they hang on to yesterday's game, today's game goes the exact same way. You would have had a 5-1 trip and a sweep in Chicago. So we won't harp on that. Could have been even better, but I think anytime you face a couple of teams that I think a lot of people expect will be in the mix for a postseason spot. Diamondbacks haven't played very well, but they've kind of underperformed so far based on what they did last year and the talent. You can go to Arizona and Chicago, 2, I think, good teams at the end of the day. Go take 4 out of 6. You'll take that. You reset with an off day tomorrow back here in San Diego, and a big series beginning against the Dodgers on Friday. Obviously, anytime you play them, it's a tough series. Before we go to the phones, I just want to point out 2 more things about Dylan Cease. If you want to understand how good this guy has been so far and how good he was here today, his opponent batting average on the year went down to 128. That's the lowest mark in all of Major League Baseball. He came in with the lowest opponent batting average in all of Major League Baseball at, I believe, 140. Am I right? Yes, 140. Opponent batting average. So that lowered by 12 points today. That's how good he was. And also, how about this? He gave up 1 hit in this game, right? The infield single to Yan Gomes, a right-handed batter. You want to know how good he's been against righties? He gave up 1 hit to a righty today. His opponent batting average against righties went up today from 0.89 to 0.93. That's how good he's been against righties. He gave up 1 hit to a right-hander today of all the right-handed bats he faced, and there were a lot of lefties in the lineup today. But he's been that good that he gave up 1 hit against a righty today, and the opponent batting average actually went up against righties to 0.93. The other thing I want to just mention, I said I would do it before we went to break, Luis Arraez. Now, Arraez gets hit by the pitch in the first inning. Again, I pointed it out in the opening segment. I thought Arraez being in motion with Cronenworth at the plate and staying out of a double play potentially was a big deal because it got Manny Machado up with a runner in scoring position. Manny comes through, makes it 1-0. But even beyond that, Orise, single in the 5th inning, 2-out single, kept that inning alive, and then the Padres end up scoring two runs in that 5th inning. You can't look past that in this game. And look, is Luis Orise going to give you power? Once in a blue moon he will, but that's not his game. What is his game? We talked about it at the time of the trade. We talked about it after his 4-hit debut on Saturday. His game is putting the ball in play, getting on base, hitting for a high average. He excels. He's one of the best, if not the best in baseball at that specific thing, putting the bat on the baseball. And why does it make a difference? You saw it in the 5th inning. All it was in the 5th inning, a 2-out single to put runners on first and second. It's still a 1-0 game at that point. But what did it do? It extended the inning. It got to tease up with a runner in scoring position. Tatis, RBI single, Cronenworth steps in, RBI double, and just like that, it went from a 1-0 game to a 3-0 game. That's why Luis Arraez has a lot of value at the top of your lineup. You flip it over, he continues an inning that only, it wasn't like the Padres had some big rally going in that 5th inning. It was 2 outs and a runner on first base. But that's what a guy like that does. It lengthens your lineup. When it flips over, he's in the leadoff spot. You know you got somebody there that can keep the line moving. And that's what Orise did today in that 5th inning. Don't overlook how important that base hit was by Luis Orise. It's a big deal, and that's part of what he's going to bring. And then he has a single in the 9th inning, and look, it's going to be a lot of that. Multi-hit games, that's how you hit in the 350s for a season like he's done before. So he was really good today, was on 3 times, scored a couple of runs, and 2 hits today for Luis Orise. I want to go back to something before we get to the radio highlights that I alluded to during the opening segment, and that is why it is so important that the Padres took 4 out of 6 from the Cubs in the season series. And look, it's a bit of a weird schedule, and we see this now with the more balanced schedule. Padres and Cubs won't play again this season. So here on May 8th, the season series between 2 non-divisional teams, the Cubs and the Padres, it's over. Padres aren't going to see the Cubs again. But the reason it's important, today's game was really important, is because by going 4-2 against the Cubs, taking 2 out of 3 in San Diego, then 2 out of 3 in Chicago, let's say the Padres and Cubs are tied for a wild card spot at the end of the year, Padres have the tiebreaker. And it's something you just put in your back pocket this early in the season. We're not going to talk about it much. We're not going to really focus on it beyond today. But guess what? These 2 teams, they very, very well could be battling for the same postseason spot or 2 at the end of the year. Could end up being a really big deal. It's something to keep in mind whenever the Padres play other good teams in the NL that aren't even in their division. And it could play a factor with a team in your division as well. But when the Brewers come to town a little bit later on this year, look, there's a good chance that the Cubs or the Brewers win that division and the other team is battling for a wild card spot. Well, guess what? The Padres took 2 out of 3 from the Brewers. So when the Brewers come to Petco Park later this year, you have an opportunity to then go win your season series against them. So again, it's just something to keep in mind. It's important now that you win season series, and the Padres now have won the season series against the Cubs. Those are some little things, some little elements that, don't seem super relevant on May 8th, but if it's September 28th, my goodness, very, very relevant, hypothetically, depending on what happens the rest of this season.